How you doing, guys? Today's date is December 21st, 2009. I wanted to put up an article that Trader G1 of YouTube, brought to light. And reading over this article, I think it is just one of the most critical articles that you can read. I would not skip reading this article. I will point out some key points in it, but this is just, I think it's just one of the most important, not only for gold and silver, but for your life. I mean, obviously you've got to eat, and what this article talks about is the food crisis, and basically that it's guaranteed to occur in 2010, and how the government has been, of course, trying to cover it up. But it also talks about other countries and how they're going to have to dump dollars in order to get this food at cheaper prices. But without reading the whole thing verbatim, I wanted to point out some parts of this article. So if you can't read it right now, you can kind of get a couple things of these. It talks about the 2010 food crisis means financial Armageddon. Over the last 2 years, the world has faced a series of unprecedented financial crises, the collapse of the housing market. We all know this. Basically, all of these, the AIG, General Motors, all of these bankruptcies and everything that we've seen. But it talks about how the 2010 food crisis is different because it is the crisis, the one that makes all doomsday scenarios come true. And you'll soon understand why. The government bailouts and central bank interventions, which have held the financial world together during the last 2 years, will be powerless to prevent the 2010 food crisis from bringing the global financial system to its knees. Financial crisis will kick into high gear. So far, the crisis has been driven by the slow and steady increase in defaults on mortgages and other loans. This is about to change. What will drive the financial crisis in 2010? Will be panic about food supplies and the dollar's plunging value. Things will start moving fast. It goes on to talk about how the supply and demand, early in 2009, the supply and demand in agriculture markets went badly out of balance. The world experienced a catastrophic fall in food production as a result of the financial crisis and adverse weather on a global scale. Meanwhile, China and other Asian exporters, in an effort to preserve their economic growth, were unleashing domestic consumption, long constrained by inflation fears, and demand for raw materials, especially food staples, exploded as Chinese consumers worked their way towards American-style overconsumption, prodded on by a food of cheap credit and easy loans from the government. Normally, food prices would have already shot higher months ago, leading to lower food consumption and bringing the global food supply-demand situation back into balance. This never happened because the United States Department of Agriculture instead of adjusting production estimates down to reflect decreased production, adjusted estimates upward to match increasing demand from China. In this way, the USDA has brought supply and demand back into balance on paper and temporarily delayed a rise in food prices by ensuring a catastrophe in 2010. But anyway, I'm not going to read this whole thing here, but I do want to go back over some spots here that I think are just extremely important. One of the key things to understand here is that the production of agricultural goods is fixed. In other words, once they do it in their 1 year or 2 year, however they do it, it's already set for those coming years, so it can't be changed. In other words, there's only so much food supply that's going to be coming because they've already estimated it. It talks about how this supply must last until the next harvest, which is why it is critical that food is correctly priced to avoid overconsumption. Otherwise, food shortages occur. And of course, due to the government's manipulation, it says the USDA, by manufacturing the data, by manipulating the data, needed to keep supply and demand in balance, has ensured that agricultural commodities are incorrectly priced, which has led to overconsumption and has guaranteed disaster next year when supplies run out. Talks about, of course, that there's a major lack of awareness. A lot of people they blow this stuff off. Most people, the majority of the herd, have to see something hit them in the face before they actually realize that, the ball's coming toward them. He talks about here that it only takes the tiniest bit of research to realize something is going critically wrong in the agricultural market. Goes on and talks about how the estimates 2009-2010 make no sense, and he encourages you, the author encourages you just to simply listen to what the USDA is saying. And this is one of the things that the USDA is saying. Specifically, the USDA has declared half the counties in the Midwest to be primary disaster areas, including 274 counties in the last 30 days alone. These designations are based on the criteria of a minimum of 30% loss and the value of at least one crop in the county. But anyway, it goes on. It shows you a chart here. I can't get this whole chart, but once you click on it, you can see, you can go through and see all the states. But in the red areas are the disaster areas. Here's another quote from the USDA. The USDA is even predicting record soybean harvests in the same states where it has been declared virtually all counties to have experienced 30% production losses. It isn't rocket science to realize something is horribly wrong. Fictitious USDA estimates should be seen as proof of the dire threat posed by higher food prices. It also explains how it's not just in the United States. While the USDA may be the worst offender, the United States isn't the only government trying to downplay the food situation out of fear. As one Indian reporter writes, governments are lying about the looming food crisis. Quote, some experts and governments in full cognizance of the facts want us not to create panic and paint a picture of crops and looming food crisis. This is, they say, would push up food prices unnaturally, lead to hoarding, and ultimately result in a situation where many more millions across the world would go hungry. Well, yes, we are going to hoard the food. I mean, if like I was watching in the movie Collapse, one of the things the guy says, you know, if there's a bear coming to eat you and you're there with everybody else, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You only have to be faster than another camper, you know, the last camper, because the bear can't eat everybody. He's only going to beat the guy that runs the slowest. But anyway, I strongly encourage you to read this article, and I would strongly encourage you to stock up on food. You know, do some searches on YouTube and find out, you know, what types of food that you should get. But, you know, I think this is incredibly serious, and you know, I would encourage anybody to copy this video and duplicate this and put this up on their own site, or put your own video up and talk about this, because this is just so important. And you know, 95% of the herd isn't going to listen anyway. But I would definitely, you know, do what you can to do your part if you're a video producer here on YouTube, and try to educate the public as much as you can. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next video. And again, thanks to Trader G1 for bringing this up, and subscribe to his channel. Take care.